Hi, this is Thane. I'm back again for my reflection here on week two's content, the videos and the readings. I like the video with the whatchamacallit guy, Mythbusters guy. I thought he was a good speaker. I thought it was interesting. I liked his message. Just make stuff that you'll learn by engaging with what you're interested in. The whole question about like art versus making your own art versus copying pop culture art. I don't know how I feel about that. I have an art background. I consider myself an artist, and I definitely think it's more worthwhile for me to write or draw my own thing rather than copy Star Wars or whatever. So I don't know how I feel about that, but like I'm all for some kid in the Philippines or wherever it was making Iron Man costume if that's what he wants to do. Awesome. I think it's great. Go for it. I'm not gonna belittle it because it's Iron Man. Um, so I like that video. Just going through the readings. One thing that struck me was I have it over here, the Good Video Games and Good Learning article here by James Paul Gee. So I was reading through that, and this one part really struck me. I'm going to read it right now. Some people think of learning in school, for example, learning biology, as all about learning facts that can be repeated on a written test. Decades of research, however, have shown that students taught under such a regime, though they may be able to pass tests, cannot actually apply their knowledge to solve problems or understand the conceptual lay of the land in the area they are learning. And he's referencing Gardner from 1985 there. So I thought that was super interesting because I almost hesitate to say this, and I don't want to come off as, what's the word? I don't know, too cool for school. But I at times I kind of hate graduate school. There's lots of stuff I like about it, but there's lots of stuff I kind of hate about it. And what I kind of hate or just don't enjoy and don't see a whole lot of value in is kind of what I think he's talking about here, like repeating things and how that's learning. And I understand there's a reason you cite stuff and you quote stuff, but a lot of times I feel like I'm just reading crap to be able to cite something back in a paper to show that I'm smart, because that's what learning is. Um, and so it's kind of the same idea, just like parroting stuff and not really learning anything or learning anything that you can apply to anything. I know in graduate school, like part of the idea is you're supposed to digest this stuff and make it your own and learn from all these wonderful, smart people that we're reading. But I do kind of feel like a lot of it's parroting, and I hate that. And I do it because I want to get good grades and I want to get the degree. That's why I'm in school and I'm paying for it. But sometimes I struggle with it. And sometimes I feel like I'm just playing a game by the rules that are set, even though I kind of think it's a little bit of bullshit. So that resonated with me. There was also something, kind of skimming through his article here, but there's something about textbooks being inefficient that also struck me. Um, Kind of going along with my theme of not liking school, how much I don't like textbooks and how I've never liked textbooks ever. And I've always been a good student. I've always gotten good grades. I've always been a decent writer, but I hate text. Here it is. It's his point number 9 here, his just in time and on demand. People are quite poor at dealing with lots and lots of words out of context. That's why textbooks are so inefficient. Games almost always give verbal information either just in time, that is, right when players need and can use it, or on demand, that is, when players feel when the player feels a need for it, wants it, is ready for it, and can make good use of it. Information should work the same way. So I like that because I don't like textbooks. I have all the textbooks for my classes. I skim through them to find citations because I have to do that. But I don't generally read them because they're boring as shit, and I don't retain anything. Like I'm literate. I can read. I'm not stupid, but textbooks don't do it for me. The obvious exception, of course, being our very excellent textbook here, if I can get in the frame, hanging out, messing around, and geeking out, which is great, and I hang on every word. I'm absolutely for sure reading it. What else did I want to say about this week? So it was a lot about games this week, and I'm also taking another class. It's another, what class is this? 287 something? This is also another 287 class. The section of which I don't know the number of either, but it's about gamifying information. So there's a lot of kind of overlap a little bit with these two classes, which I thought was interesting. And so in this other class, we're talking about how to take game conventions and apply them to educational games or learning games or whatever. And it's kind of what's good about games, which is very similar to this article here by our buddy, whatever his name is, John Paul Leon or something like that. But one point that I thought would be interesting to share from the other class in exploring games and what works in games and how you can apply games to learning is storytelling. They talk about a lot. This is kind of surprising to me, but very interesting to me and kind of obvious when you think about it. But that storytelling is a huge aspect of games. And especially you think of modern video games, they're kind of like movies with all the cutscenes and stuff, and storytelling is very integral to what they are, and that's part of what makes them so engaging. So I thought it was a really interesting idea to kind of apply storytelling to learning and to gamification of learning and stuff. And in an interesting way, I thought it applied to this article I have over here, because I thought it was an interesting article. There were parts of it that jumped out to me, but I also thought it was a little boring. But at the beginning, I liked it a lot because at the beginning, he was basically telling the story of helping his son play this video game. He told a little bit the story of the game, capturing the darkness in the lunch pail or whatever it was, and then the story of him like going and getting video games and being like, oh wow, video games aren't shit. They're actually pretty good. And you can learn from them. But then he kind of leaves the story and ends up in more academic language here, where he's, being a good academic and citing his sources and kind of giving us a list in a very formal way of what's good and what's not good, or what's good about games and why they're good for learning. And I think it's a fine article. I think it's good, and like I said, there were parts of it that really jumped out at me, but I did think the list part was pretty boring. And I don't have an answer for this. I don't have a solution, but I think the beginning was really engaging because it was telling a story and implied storytelling tactics that really, for me personally, made it interesting to read. And my question would be, how could you make that go through the entire article to kind of maintain that level of interest, so people don't tune out when it gets a little drier? So that's my advice to this guy who wrote this article. More storytelling. Storytelling in the beginning was great, had me hanging on every word, and you lost me a little bit at the end. So I think that's what he can learn, and maybe that's what we can learn to do. Something we can learn from video games for learning. That's all I have to say. Thanks. See y'all next week.